So guys, this is gonna be a super funny episode. I like really fought for the name on this. I don't really have to fight much, but I know that Carmen doesn't like cussing as much as I do. So this one is called "Fucking Over Your Future Self," because we both have currently and then very near future, near present, have fucked over our future selves, and so we have some lessons that we want to share. A lot of times in coaching, where the concept of this comes from is we have like past, present, and future self, and really like being able to connect with those helps us, for me and my clients, like third person it out, like helps us better to like create a healthier relationship with ourselves. And when I think about like with my clients and myself, like my future self, it's all about making decisions a lot ahead of time and thinking about the Kim next week that's actually going to have to exist in that moment. A lot of times this comes around like scheduling things, right? Like a lot of us, especially driven people, like we will schedule things out ahead of time, or we are like have all this to-do list, right? And we never think about the person in the moment that has to do all those things. We're thinking currently in the moment, the person right here and now that's trying to get rid of a feeling that they don't want to feel, and they put the burden on your future self that's actually going to have to go do the work, that's actually going to have to like live by that schedule, right? And so a lot of times we really put ourselves in emotionally and physically exhausting situations because we are not making those decisions, and we're not making kind decisions for our future self that's going to have to do it. So that's where this conversation's coming in at.
Yeah. Yeah. So my firsthand experience this last couple of weeks is I've been trying to learn this lesson, and some days I can say I'm better to my future self. Today is not one of those days. So I scheduled some time out of the office, right? Some time to spend with family. And it was a couple weeks. And of course, when I created my schedule, I knew that I was going to get back to, well, not today, yesterday, Thursday. And when I looked at my schedule, I thought, wow, I'm going to be out of the office for 2 weeks. That's a really long time. So I felt guilty. So I took patience today, Friday, and I said, I'm going to schedule Friday instead of waiting till the following week. Like as soon as I get back into Oklahoma, I'm going to start seeing people, because I was already taking, I felt like I was taking too much time off. So today has been a very full day. It's been very tiring. And I'm looking at my schedule thinking, I wonder why I did this to myself. Why did I create a very full schedule when I didn't get in until about 10 o'clock last night, and didn't really give myself a lot of time to prepare, to look at any chart notes. And I hit the ground running this morning, right? And a little bit anxiety ridden to get the things that I needed to get done before my day even started. So I am realizing that that feeling of guilt, right? Like that's really what put me in this situation, is when I looked at my schedule and I was like, sure, I can squeeze you guys in on that Friday, so that instead of missing, 3 weeks in a row of a session, that I'd be like, okay, well, it's only 2 weeks, because I'm going to squeeze in as many people as I can that, second week. So,
yeah. So let me paint a picture for people so they can get this concept a little clearly. So rewind 2 weeks ago, right? That Carmen in the moment, who was facing 2 weeks of vacation, right? She was feeling probably excitement, but then also the guilt came in of like, I'm taking so much time off, right? And that Carmen in the moment was like, you know what? I don't want to feel this emotion of guilt. I want to feel it. So I'm going to take an action to relieve that guilt. I'm going to make myself available the day after I get back from vacation, Friday, with no thought about the future Carmen that's going to have to be on vacation, drive all this time, not get home late, and then have to wake up early and go back into work mode and have to deal with the anxiety of that quick transition. Like the past Carmen fucked over the future Carmen, because this Carmen today is the one that's having to deal with the aftermath of that decision of avoiding guilt. I'm not trying to be harsh, but
that's exactly what happened. Yeah. I woke up this morning with so much anxiety of all the things I needed to do. And I mean, I was exhausted by the time we got home. I got home last night. And yeah, I woke up and not even like, it was earlier than I normally wake up. Right. Yeah. But I woke up and all of a sudden my mind flooded with all of the things that I needed to do. And that anxiety got me out of bed. And yeah. And motivated me to do the things like to clean my house, to get my office organized and ready before the first person showed up. When it would have been more helpful if I would have 2 weeks ago been like, okay, I know that I'm not going to get home till like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And if I took Friday off to recuperate and to, have a little bit of downtime, sleep in, organize my office a little bit more, and then hit the ground running Monday morning, things would have gone a lot smoother. Yeah.
So the question is, so we change, like, and I want you to hear this, and I think other people need to hear this too. I'm by no means shaming you or judging you. Like, we're just trying to get to some clarity and root cause, right? Yeah. To make different decisions. So it's like, we traded instant gratification. I don't want to feel guilt.
Yeah.
For the immediate suffering of now. So which one is more painful for you to have like recognized the guilt? I'm going to feel it and I'm going to move forward, or the suffering of today?
Which is worse?
Which one's worse?
The suffering of today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, even though like I don't like to feel guilty, right? Mm-hmm. Like I have a whole history of guilt and shame and people pleasing. So that is not a comfortable feeling for me.
Right.
I've gotten better at, experiencing that feeling and, working through it and letting go and not letting it or not giving it the power to make those decisions. I still find it challenging when somebody's in front of me and I feel that guilty, of like, okay, well, I want you to come back in 6 weeks, and to be honest, 1 week difference, for the majority of situations isn't the end of the world, right? Or the difference between a Friday and a Monday. So, okay, it's 3 days, but it's not really a whole nother week, right? That they've been on that protocol or, we expect to see things change. But in the moment, it was hard for me to process that. I was like, oh no, this, I need to get you in this week. And this is the only day I have available that silly me made available. But today felt like a lot more suffering than the 5 minutes that it took 2 weeks ago when I scheduled, when I scheduled these appointments. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like kind of the whole concept of like fucking over our future self. Like she has to deal with the delayed. We're trying to delay feeling an emotion. So she has to feel that emotion that we delayed, but even more emotion on top of it and still do all the things.
Well, yeah, it's magnified.
Yes.
Yeah, it's magnified more today than,
Yeah. And so when we talk about this, like we have to think like, and when we start making decisions, like really getting honest with ourselves and honoring ourselves, like, okay, all these decisions are going to impact my future self. Mm-hmm. Like I'm the one that's going to have to show up and work that schedule. I'm the one that's going to have to complete that to-do list. And then ask yourself, like, is this kind to me?
Yeah.
Am I being kind to me? Like last Friday or like 2 weeks ago, like if you to pause and ask yourself, like, okay, opening up for Friday, is that being kind to me?
Right. Yeah. I would have said, no, don't do that. That's not a good idea. Oh,
When we say that and we're like, but our brain's still going to offer up, like, no, it's not a good idea, but your brain's still going to be like, well, I feel guilty.
I feel bad. Yeah.
I feel bad, right? So then it's like, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
What would like what now like what would you do with that? Like you're still gonna have that guilt there, but you also have this thought like that's not kind to me to do that. Like
Yeah.
what do you do?
So then you kind of weigh it out, right? This is what I figured out to do, like, especially on my satellite clinics when I go out and I come back after being gone for 2 or 3 days. I'm like, I already know that I'm going to be mentally exhausted and not have the energy. So even though that feeling of guilt and being uncomfortable, right? I weigh that out. I'm like, okay, it's not being kind to me, but I'm also in the long run not going to be 100% during those visits. So I've been better at not scheduling people right away, right? Like I will take that Thursday off and I will schedule people the following that Friday after my satellite clinics, because I am recognizing, right, that even though I'm not feeling comfortable with it, I know in the future it's going to be worse. It's going to be magnified. And so, yeah, I think that I've found to be more patient with myself and give myself a little bit of grace is like, I don't, in order for me to be the best practitioner that I can be, I have to take breaks, right? Like I have to give myself a little bit of time off, so that I can be in the right headspace. So I can, give my patients 100% during their visits. Otherwise I'm not helping them. Then I do feel, more guilt in the long run.
And like to translate that, what you did was you figured out your why.
Mm-hmm.
And you love your reason why, right? Your why was like, why, okay, I need to be kind to my future self, but I'm feeling the guilt in the moment. Like, why do I want to be kind to myself? Well, because I want to be 100% for my clients. And
Yeah.
you love that reason why so much that it helps you override the guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Even though I did not employ that this go round, I have been much better at doing that for my regularly scheduled clinics. I see that pattern, in myself now because it took a little bit of coaching, but to understand that, because I was like, okay, what makes it so challenging, right, to show up to this schedule that I created, is that it's hard I'm tired, right? Like my brain is just not where I want it to be. Yeah. And so I can forgo that by being kinder to myself and giving me that opportunity to rest, so that I have that energy to show up for people.
Yeah. 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 And that's like this whole concept of like future self. Like, how do I take care of her? She's the one that's going to have to show up and do it. She's the one that's going to have to go through these things. But then also, like, there's another way we use our future self. We could do another episode on of like, yeah, we'll talk about that later. But I mean, we're all do it, right? Like I did the same thing with this backpacking trip. Like
Yeah.
I didn't think about Kim. I didn't think about the one that was going to have to drive 11 hours both ways. I didn't think about like, not only am I demanding of her to be physically like carrying a pack, hiking back, but I forgot that I was also going to demand of her a lot of emotional energy, right? Like feeling the responsibility of taking care of these people, being available, right? And I just didn't think about her. I just stayed in the moment of like, this is what we have to do, not thinking about like, how is this gonna like she's the one that's going to have to show up. She's the one that's going to have to drive. She's the one that's going to have to pack in. She's going to want to be the one that's like responsible for it all. And I thought I did because I like had put in these like Airbnbs. I thought I was being kind, but then I didn't even think about like, okay, what will she feel like when she gets back from this trip?
Yeah.
Right? Because then I didn't like, thank God my schedule was light, but I didn't take the day after off. And after this trip, like I have now made a nice role for my future self. That's like, if I am ever gone for anything, work, vacation, anything, the hard and fast rule is the next day I have to take off work.
Yeah.
I mean, if I come home on a Friday, like of course Saturday and Sunday, but if I come on a Thursday, I have to take Friday off, like because Kim's going to come back from that stuff emotionally and physically exhausted.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm going to be kind to her. If I'm going to demand such high intensity from her, I have to be compassionate and kind and like give her a break.
Right.
So,
I think that makes sense. You're being honest with yourself,
yeah.
right? You're being honest and understanding, okay, yeah, I know where I, like will perform my best, where I will feel my best. And so you're just, yeah, being honest with those expectations and scheduling them out, right? That's the idea, is you're being kind to your future self because you're like, okay, I acknowledge what it's going to take for me to do, like this activity, but anytime I travel, whether it's for work or for business or for vacation, that I'm going to have to recuperate a little bit, right? That I'm going to have to wind down, right? Like refocus, get grounded again to be able to jump into whatever next activity you've got planned.
And I think we're capable of doing that because we've done a lot of work and like honoring ourselves. Like we've done the work to get to a place where we can honor ourselves.
Right.
I think if you haven't done the work, it's going to be very difficult to think in this way, right? Because we're constantly shitting on ourselves, right? Like we're just we're either beating ourselves up all the time, or critical of ourselves, or we're people pleasing all the time, and just like we're not our own friend. And I think you and I have done the work that, and my clients, like where we're becoming our own friend. And so then we can think in terms of like, okay, how do I want to be kind to my future self? Like I can be honest about who I am and accept that. And when we haven't done the work and we're not friends with ourselves, we're constantly rejecting ourselves and not being honest with ourselves of who we are.
Yeah. And that can be challenging, right? That can be challenging because when you start to see yourself as a friend, it's a different perspective, right? It's a different perspective of like, oh, I can be good to me, right? Like I can be friendly to me. Like if I were to create your schedule, right? I wouldn't schedule a full day because I'd be like, oh man, you're going to be tired after that trip, right? Like, let's do a light day, or let's take an extra day off, or, schedule less energetically, demanding events for that day, And so I think when you help me work through it and be like, oh, well, I could do that for myself, but you have that perspective. You're like, oh, yeah, I wouldn't do that for my best friend. Why am I doing that to myself?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I had on fucking over your future self.
Yeah.
Let's be kind to our future selves, like, because they're the ones that are going to have to show up and do the work and deal with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys, this episode is actually going to lead into the next episode because we're going to talk about our nervous system and like how this plays into our nervous system and how where we're at in our nervous system plays into this whole future self thing. So we will see you in next episode as we talk about that.